everybody, you're watching part 2 of the Careminds podcast episode with Samir Desai, Senior Director of Engineering and Product Management at Verana Health. In this part 2 of the episode, together with Samir, we're discussing Verana Health's way of solving interoperability challenges, the way their PM structure is built and works in order to solve these challenges efficiently, and Samir's thoughts on the future of interoperability. Hope you enjoy. Let's get started. Speaking about Verana Health now, how does Verana Health approach this problem space that we've defined? Let's start with the lack of standardization. How does Verana make sure that you're as a provider or a smaller startup are covered on that end?
Yeah. So I think Verana is in a very special place as such because we have a advantage of working with societies. So we do work with 3 different societies in 3 different specialties, which help us like a little bit more leverage with EHR vendors because we can request our societies to work with EHR vendors to give us more support in terms of mapping data and setting up our connections and stuff like that. Now, the approach which we have taken is we want to give the best customer satisfaction for our registry members. So we are meeting where our customers are. So if a particular practice is with Epic, we do have our Fire ingestion APIs, where we work with Fire, we can ingest that. So it's a very low lift on a particular hospital or a practice. But if the other practices are in a situation where they don't have something like Epic and they're using very small specialty EHR, which only solves ophthalmology problems, we either go and directly get their data from their databases and then take the load on us to work with their EHR vendor to understand where the mappings are and stuff like that. Or we allow, if their EHRs have developed very standard extracts, we also work with those standard extracts and say that, okay, we will take your standard extracts and we will map it to our common data model. So it's offering multiple choices to our customers to meet where they are and allowing them the opportunity to participate in the registry and get the advantages of like understanding how their quality of care is and improving, giving them suggestions on where they can do better. I think that's our philosophy, that we want to get that in. Also, the other aspect of that is we also keeping patients in mind here, because we at Verana we also offer like opportunities to practices to then participate in clinical trials, but ultimately they also help the patients. Because what's happening today is if you are in probably the coast, you have as a patient more opportunities to look at these breakthrough treatments and be participating in the trials and stuff like that. But if you are in the central part of the country in US, you may not have those opportunities because a lot of things get involved in that. But at least we are trying to solve the data problems for them. We are allowing them to participate in the data, have the technology to connect them to these platforms. Now, the next part is like beyond our control, but at least we are doing our part of saying that, yes, you are in the fold and you can join it. So that's kind of the aspect which we are doing. And then on top of it, we use AI to go beyond just the structured data and looking at the notes and stuff like that to come up with models which can identify additional information. And then we convert that to structured format. So we are not just identifying it, but then we convert that to structured format and then allow that data back to the research organizations or clinical trials and stuff like that. So that's what we pride ourselves in, is we will do the hard lifting of converting that data into common structure models, learn our algorithms on top of it, learn from it, and then put a structured data and make that structured data available for research organizations.
This is a pretty interesting business value proposition. Also, allowing your customers to leverage on the AI/ML insights is very, very interesting. And you do so with a pretty interesting multi-layered PM structure as well. I know that you've touched base with me on this. You are a senior sort of like technical product manager at Verana. And you also have like a different layer of product managers that are more customer facing. Can you please tell us how does this collaboration ultimately works together and results in not only good problem solving definition, but also execution when it comes to product development?
Yeah, so I think the way it works, I think it's a very common now kind of a structure in Silicon Valley. It's I think some people call it as inbound or outbound product managers, and some people call it technical product managers versus traditional product managers. So I think whatever you want to call it, but I think the way I look at it is my job at Verana is looking at building the platform. So when I'm building a platform, I'm not directly interfacing with my customers, but I'm interfacing via my, you can call it outbound product managers as my customers. So I'm looking at the people who are going to develop additional apps on top of my platform. And that's what I am focused on. So they are my customers as such. So I am more technical oriented in terms of setting up the platform, looking at this, how we can scale this. But when I say scale, it's not in just in terms of the pure performance, but operational scale of it and stuff like that. So I'm focusing on that aspect. And then my outbound managers are figuring out whatever data or insights we have like built out. And mostly I always call it as they build experiences on top of it. So I build the platform, I get the data, and then my outbound product managers are building experiences based on which customer they are serving. So at Verana, interestingly, we have our societies are our customers. So they are want to look at their member registry and how they're performing. So we have product managers catering to that needs. We have actual doctors, providers as our customers. We do have applications and experiences built for that customer base. And we also have sponsors who sponsor clinical trials and stuff like that. So three different customer bases, we are building experiences for them. But my platform is agnostic from that. So that's kind of where the layer comes in. And I think it works pretty well because as a product managers, it's good to understand how data is getting used, but I don't have to bog down my engineers with that, and kind of I become that layer in between them. So that's the way I kind of look at it.
I love this separation of concerns. I like this approach a lot. And talking about the operation side of things, you've mentioned you're responsible for operational scaling as well. How do you ensure this scaling happens, according to the plan, the kind of resources that you have, but also ensuring that it goes smooth and efficient?
Yeah. So even in operational scaling, we are looking at like two or three different aspects of it. So one operational scaling is very simply if we don't have like some EHRs are cloud hosted, so the setups are easier with them. Some EHRs are on-prem, so we literally connecting to practice by practice. So we at Verana have more than 1,500 connections to individual practices.
Mm-hmm.
So there is an aspect of saying how easy my solutions are. So there is not a high lift on the IT teams of these practices. And again, these are one or two doctor practices. They don't have resources to have large IT teams. So when I build solutions, I need to be sure and aware that I may not have the more sophisticated IT team out there. So I need to build solutions which are easier for them. I do remote management and stuff like that on those solutions. So the lift is on us to make sure those are running. So there is a operational aspect of that, how to help these many practices set up connections and stuff like that. How do we monitor those connections and how do we make sure they're always up? And we pride on latency of our data refreshes and stuff like that. Traditionally, this space has been working on claims, which sometimes have 90 days lag. We are changing it down to weeks right now.
Okay.
So, but that's where the scale aspect of one aspect of that comes is how do you maintain these connections and keep them up? The other aspect of scaling also comes in terms of every HR doesn't come on the same day. That means they are coming different in different months. They're saying, okay, we have resources. That's where we have to plan for. I have my mapping or what we call clinical data transformation resources available to work with those. So it's somewhat planning and kind of program management of how we're gonna like stagger these because we don't have unlimited resources. Neither do our EHR partners have resources.
Right.
So it's kind of planning in that sense as well in terms of how do we make these things happen. And then once the data comes in, there is a completely separate layer looking at how do we solve for different curation algorithms and stuff like that. So we are focusing on disease areas and stuff like that. So there's a different cycle to figure out where the market is and what is the needs of our research organization and stuff like that to staff that aspect. But I think these first two aspects are a little bit external facing. So operational scaling is it's kind of more important because we have to meet again our partners where they are. So it's kind of, again, as I said, it's not always science. It's sometimes just art and intuition of saying how do we staff for these things and how do we plan for these skills.
Pretty interesting. And what are your thoughts on the future of interoperability for smaller startups, smaller practices, more niche practices? Where do you see the space evolving? Is it going to be easier for you to kind of like navigate through that pool of integrations and data streams as future progresses?
I think I'm looking at like actually the other industries, right, which are leveraging data in much better ways than what healthcare is, and there are reasons for it. We can't be same as consumer industry to like get the data, but if you look at like the data space overall, I think we are moving towards like data set marketplaces, right? So like AWS recently has come up with their own marketplace. I think there are other vendors which are doing these similar things. I think that space is gonna get interesting, where you don't have to go and set up. What we are doing is like, as I said, plumbing to do these sets, but you'll have organizations which will probably do the initial plumbing for you, clean up the data for you, and
Mm-hmm.
make the data sets available in marketplaces. And then startups can maybe leverage that first and see what they can generate, either newer AI models to do certain things which other industries are not focused on or other competitors are not focused on, or take the data and build experiences which other competitors are not experienced on, like, or maybe they're not interested in solving. So that might be a space, and only if you exhaust those options and say that I can't do what I can do, what I want to do for this data, then probably startups are going to get into this expensive way of getting a data. But this is very capital intensive process to set up these many connections and get that data.
Got it. Samir, thank you very much for being a part of this Careminds podcast episode. Amazing points.
Thank you, Daniel. I think this was an interesting opportunity to talk to your audience.
Thanks for watching this part 2 of the Careminds podcast episode with Samir Desai, Senior Director of Engineering and Product Management at Verana Health. Hit the like button if you like this content. Please consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification. This helps the channel to produce more content like this. Consider leaving a comment below. Would be excited and thrilled to hear which topics in health tech, product development, and interoperability you would like us to cover next.